Hello. Okay, so now we're on to chapter 8. Sorry, it's been a little bit since I have moved on from chapter 7 to chapter 8, but my life kind of got a little difficult, or I was having a difficult time missing my kids and stuff, so recently my oldest son just had my first grandbaby, so that was a tough pill for me to swallow, and I had a really hard time getting through that. So still having a hard time, but God is helping. So I want to move on with this and try and, let this help me, help you. Just, we got to just keep on keeping on. So, any prayers would gladly be appreciated right now. Still don't have any contact with my kids at all, so I probably, I don't know if I will ever see my grandbaby. I can't find, I tried to look for pictures online, and I think they set their sites to private, or their pages to private, or whatever, which could be, because of me, or could be them just trying to protect the baby. So, and I'm all for protecting that sweet baby. So, I don't know if it's a boy or girl. I don't even know the exact date that he or she was born. So, I'm just, moving on, waiting for the day we all go home and I get to see my grandbaby then. And hopefully my kids too. So, anyway, okay, enough about me. Moving on to chapter 8. So, in this chapter now, Job's friend, I use the word friend loosely. I'm going to zoom out a little bit because I'm using air quotes and you can't see me use air quotes. But I'm using the word friend loosely because, come on, friends don't, I've said this before, friends don't treat each other like this. They build up, they don't tear down. So, this is one of the 3 friends that we'll hear from. Bildad, his name means the Lord loved, because the Lord loves all of us, even the ones that don't treat their friends right, or, murder, or lie, or commit adultery, or sexual immorality, whatever. God still loves us, and God still loves Bildad. So, we'll see in chapter 8, this is throughout Job. In chapter 8, he's going to argue that a just God does not punish the innocent. In chapter 18, he's going to argue and say that Job should admit he was suffering the just fate of the wicked. And chapter 25, he's going to he's going to say that no person can be righteous before the awesome God, which that is true. No person without Jesus can be, I'll add that caveat, can be righteous before the awesome God without Jesus. You don't have Jesus, you can't achieve righteousness. It's not. Sorry about that. Okay, so if you don't have Jesus Christ, you cannot be righteous, and therefore you cannot be before the awesome God, because you're not allowed in his presence without being righteous and clean. So I don't know what I'm going to say here. So you need to admit your sin, repent of it, admit Jesus is Christ is Lord, that you can't make it without him. You can't go to heaven without him. You can't be righteous without him. And then, and only then, can you be righteous. You don't have to be baptized. That's all you gotta do, is admit you're a sinner in need of Christ. Admit that Jesus died on the cross for your sins and rose again. And that you can't make it without him. Or that you can't get to God without him. He is the way, the truth, and the life. No one can get to God except through him. So, sorry to go off on that tangent, but I felt like somebody needed to hear it. So, okay. Okay, let's read through verse 1. Then Bildad the Shuhite answered and said, "How long will you say these things, and the words of your mouth be a great wind?" Oh, wait a minute. Oh, no. Okay. Does God pervert justice, or does the Almighty pervert the right? So let's look at that. So that word pervert isn't what you and I know today as being, a pervert. It's saying alter from the original course, meaning or state a distortion or corruption of what was first intended. Webster 1828 says to turn from truth and propriety, or from its proper purpose, to distort from its true use or end, to turn from the right to corrupt. So, does Jesus do that, or does God do that? Does he alter what we perceive as justice? No. Because all sinners are put to death. All sinners who are not, who don't know Jesus and don't trust in Jesus, they're going to get their justice, which is death, which is them going to hell. So that's, whatever our form of justice is, that's God's justice. That's not a perverted justice. It's not altered from its original course, because that's the way God intended it. That was its original course. So we also have some cross-references here. So Deuteronomy, let me get this down here. 32:4, he is the rock, his work is perfect, for all his ways are judgment, a God of truth and without iniquity, just and right is he. Sorry, I stopped. I had to look and make sure that we're still recording, because my camera just wants to shut off. Okay, Psalm 89:14. Righteousness and justice are the foundation of your throne. Mercy and truth go before your face. Oh, sorry. Okay, wait a minute. Didn't see the punctuation there. Righteousness and justice are the foundation of your throne. Mercy and truth go before your face. Daniel 9:14. Therefore the Lord has kept the disaster in mind, and brought it upon us. For the Lord our God is righteous in all works which he does, though we have not obeyed his voice. So he's righteous in everything, and he doesn't, unlike what Bildad's saying here, he doesn't no, I guess it's what he was saying. what he's going to say in another one. I thought it was here. He argues that a just God does not punish the innocent. God does not punish any. Well, he doesn't really punish people. He corrects them. His punishment is the being in hell for all eternity. That's the punishment. So if you're a Christian, then you don't receive that punishment and that justice, but you will get correction. You will get tribulation. He will allow the devil to do things to you, just like he is Job here, to refine us into the person that we are meant to be, or the person that he wants to be, in order to get us to, I think, to go out and convert other people and get other people to heaven and bring them to Christ, and get as many people in heaven as we can. Because even God says, I wish that no one should perish. He doesn't want anybody to go to hell. But he gave us free will. So that's the thing. He doesn't want to just be a commander and say, okay, you do this and you do that, da 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 da. He wants us to have our own opinion. And we are predestined in the way that God wanted us. So we're predestined in that way. But it's our free will that chooses Christ. And I think it's predestined because he knows the end from the beginning. I forget the word for that. Because there's words for Christ like omniscient and omnipotent, and there's one that means that he's like, he can go throughout time and space. So I think that he knows who's going to be converted, who's going to choose him, and so he uses that to refine them into a good Christian and get them to move others. My camera cut out. Okay. So I don't know where it stopped. We have a family member whose child died. And I'm being very careful the way I tell this story so that it doesn't, I said, no, I don't want my identity out there because of fear of retribution from my ex-husband. So anyway, they had a child and the child died. They were strong atheists. And when she died, the fear of never seeing her again brought them to Christ. They ultimately chose Christ and became very strong Christians. But it was that death that got them to change direction, because they wanted to go to heaven and see her. And if atheists or if we're wrong and there's no God, then we'll never know it. But if there is a God, which I strongly believe there is, the atheists, when they die, they will know it. So we've got to help people see this. Anyway, sorry to get off on that tangent, but okay. So Romans 3:4-6, certainly not, indeed, let God be true, but every man a liar. As it is written, that you may be justified in your words and may overcome when you are judged. Okay, so back to our reading here. So if your children have sinned against him, talking about Job's children. Oops, sorry. He has delivered them into the hand of their transgression. And I have a cross-reference for that one too. Oh, I didn't write it all out here, but it's the story of Sodom and Gomorrah. And Sodom and Gomorrah, those people were punished because they weren't Christians. They were very, 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 there was a lot of evil there and a lot of promiscuity. I can't think of the word I'm trying to think of. Sorry, my anxiety gets going and I lose words. So, so they did get punished with death. And that, it says in the Bible, matter of fact, I was just reading a verse last night that said that, you know, people who are not Christians, God will punish them with death if he doesn't see that they're going to, in any way, turn around and go the other direction. So if they're doing evil things, then God's going to punish them with death. Like these murderers and stuff like that. So that they're not hurting other people. And he doesn't always do that. But his, as the verse says, his ways are greater than our own. In all his wisdom, he knows exactly what's going to happen and how everything's going to happen and how everything should be fit to place so that things happen. To bring people to him. Alright, so verse 5. If you will seek God and plead with the Almighty for mercy, if you are pure and upright, surely then he will rouse himself for you and restore your rightful habitation. Now remember, when we back in Job 1, it told us, let's see here. Have you considered my servant Job, that there is none like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man who fears God and turns away from evil. So that tells you right there that Bildad is wrong, because God says he's blameless and upright. And we have another cross-reference here from 1 John 3, 19 through 22. If I get it, and there you go. But this we shall know, that we are of the truth, and reassured our heart before him. For whenever our heart condemns us, God is greater than our heart, and he knows everything. Beloved, if our heart does not condemn us, we have the confidence before God, and whatever we ask, we receive from him, because we keep his commandments and do what pleases him. Alright. Verse 7. And though your beginning was small, your latter days will be very great. Here, latter days is talking about of time, latter part or actual close of a man's life. And we have a cross-reference here for Deuteronomy 8:16. Who fed you in the wilderness with manna, that your fathers did not know, that he might humble you and test you, to do you good in the end. That's that refining we're talking about. That's the tribulation and refining. So if you are watching this because you are going through trials and tribulations and you've had loss and you've just been beaten down by this world, that's what it's for. It's refining you like they refine gold. You know, it's beating you down like they do with diamond, or with, you know, with coal to make diamonds, that pressure. That's what God is doing to you. Right, let me see here. It's always around that 11-minute mark that it cuts out on me. Zechariah 14:7. And there shall be a unique, or one day, which is known to the Lord, neither day nor night, but at evening time there shall be light. So only God knows. Just like with the rapture, which I'm not sure if this is talking about the rapture or death, but either way, both are the same. Only God knows the day, the time, or the hour, and the day. So it doesn't help you to worry about your kids or about finances or about anything, because God knows. God's got it all planned out. And with your kids, I mean, we always worry about our kids. I don't even have them in my life and I still worry about my kids. But only God knows the day or the hour. So, all right. Let's move it along here. Verse 8. For inquire, please, of bygone ages, and consider that the fathers have reached out. For we are but yesterday, and know nothing. For our days on earth are a shadow. Will they not teach you, and tell you, and utter words out of their understanding? And let's see. Get my phone here. It wants to, or I have written down to read the New King James Version, because it's probably a little easier to understand, or it gives us a different kind of look at it. Job 8:8. For inquire, please, of the former age, and consider the things discovered by their fathers. For we were born yesterday and know nothing, because our days on earth are a shadow. Will they not teach you and tell you and utter words from your heart? I think that for, where does it say? Your days on earth are a shadow. I mean, yeah, there's darkness here and we need to seek the light, which is Jesus Christ. But I also think, I mean, shadows come and go with the light. Okay. Alright, it shut off again. Okay. Can papyrus grow where there is no marsh? Can reeds flourish where there is no water? While yet in flower and not cut down, they wither before any other plant. Such are the paths of all who forgot God. The hope of the godless shall perish. I need to do that. Okay, so a cross-reference here. It's verse 13. There it is. Deuteronomy 8:19. Then it shall be, if you by any means forget the Lord your God, follow other gods, and serve them and worship them, I testify against you this day that you shall surely perish. And that perish is, you're not going to have eternity with God. You're going to die and go to hell. So if you go to heaven, you live forever. Okay. Sorry, I was looking at... There we go. It looks a little bit, when I hold it up, it's a little bit fuzzy. Okay. Behold, this is the joy of his way, and out of the soil others will spring. Behold, God will not reject a blameless man, nor take the hand of evildoers. He will yet fill your mouth with laughter. And whoops. No, that's the wrong one. Okay. Psalm 126:2. Then our mouth was filled with laughter, and our tongue with singing. Then they said among the nations, the Lord has done great things for them. Amen to that. I hope you know God and you are rejoicing in Him today. Even in our tribulation, we're supposed to rejoice. Let me see how I can get this to be clearer here. Okay. And your lips with shouting, or rejoicing is another way of that. Those who hate you will be clothed with shame, and the tent of the wicked will be no more. Psalm 35:26. Let them be ashamed and brought to mutual confusion who rejoice at my hurt. Let them be clothed with shame and dishonor who exalts themselves against me. Let me see. I think this is... Okay. All right. So now let's take a look at what Matthew Henry says, or a few things that Matthew Henry. We're not going to read the whole thing. I just have a few things highlighted, right? Okay. So and I should have done this after each section, but I didn't, so sorry about that. So, in verse 1 through 7, Matthew Henry says, even in disputes... Hold on a second. Let me get this to focus better. There we go. Even in disputes on religion, it is too common to treat others with sharpness, and their arguments with contempt. So we shouldn't be fighting with other people, especially of our own religion, over things that we think were right or wrong in our religion. Especially, the Christian religion and stuff. We're supposed to go to each other with love and discuss things that we think, and some things aren't, they don't even matter. I mean, some things, what was, our pastor was talking about that a couple weeks ago, between two, Arminianism and, I forget the other, Calvinism. And, he's like, we don't need to die on this battlefield of what we think, when we think the rapture is going to happen, or when we think tribulation is going to start, or those aren't things that are important. The doctrine, the essential doctrine, that's important. But those other things that we don't even understand yet, because we're not God, we don't know for sure. Some parts of the Bible people can't, know for sure exactly what's going to happen, because it's sometimes how you, I don't want to say interpret it, but there's some things that you don't know, they're not like flat out in the Bible going, okay, this is exactly what's going to happen. This is when it's going to happen. No. So we don't need to argue about that. We need to have love. We can discuss. We can say, oh, I think this because of this Bible verse. I think this because of this Bible verse. But we don't need to have, like he said, that sharpness with each other and arguments. So Bildad's discourse shows that he had not a favorable opinion of Job's character. Job owned that God did not pervert judgment, yet it did not therefore follow that his children were castaways, or that they died for some great transgression. Extraordinary afflictions are not always the punishment of extraordinary sins. Sometimes they are the trials of extraordinary graces. I love that. In judging of another's case, we ought to take a favorable side. Bildad puts Job in hope that if he were indeed upright, he would yet see a good side of his present troubles. This is God's way of enriching the souls of his people with graces and comforts. The beginning is small, but the progress is to perfection. Dawning light grows in noonday. So then from verses 8 through 19, he proves this truth of the destruction of the hopes and joys of hypocrites by an appeal to former times. A rush growing in fenny ground, or swampy ground, looking very green but withered in dry weather, represents the hypocrite's profession, which is mainly only in times of prosperity. The spider's web spun with great skill, but easily swept away, represents a man's pretenses to religion when without the grace of God in his heart. The flourishing of the tree planted in the garden, striking root to the rock, yet after a tree cut down and thrown aside, represents wicked men, when most firmly established, suddenly thrown down and forgotten. And then 20 through 22, he says, Bildad here assures Job, as he was so he I can't talk. Bildad here assures Job that as he was so he should fare. Therefore, they concluded that as he fared, so he was. God will not cast away an upright man. He may be cast down from time to time, but he shall not cast away forever. Sin brings ruin on persons and families. Yet to argue that Job was an ungodly, wicked man was unjust and uncharitable. The mistake in these reasonings arose from Job's friends, not distinguishing between the present state of trial and discipline and the future state of final judgment. May we choose the portion possess the confidence, bear the cross, and die the death of the righteous. And in the meantime, be careful neither to wound others by rash judgments, nor to distress ourselves needlessly about the opinions of our fellow creatures, which should not, need to be said, but it does. So, I don't know if I pointed this out before, but I just have to point this out. I made this little bookmark, and I think she is so cute. Alright, guys, so next time we'll be doing chapter 9, and we will hear Job's answer to Bildad. That should be interesting. Hopefully he fights back for himself. I know, I've read this, 2 times all the way through, 2 or 3 times. But my memory isn't very good, so I don't remember what he says to Bildad. But we'll find out. So I will see you next time. And God bless and goodbye. Hope to see you in the sky.